There's no doubt the earthquake dealt its most savage blow to the inner suburbs of Newcastle, yet outlying areas have not escaped its force. There may not be barriers and no-go zones, but people and buildings have still been affected.
We have sustained damage in numerous suburbs, some more than others. A few buildings have to be demolished. Some of our heritage buildings have sustained damage, some major, mostly just minor.
Unlike the worst-hit areas of Newcastle, Lake Macquarie has relatively few old buildings. However, damage of varying severity is still scattered across the city. Residents of the small community of Holmesville, almost due west of the epicentre, say they felt the full force of the earthquake.
A lot of people didn't realise how much damage was done out here.
Far from the heart of the earthquake devastation, another family without a home. The Parkers have lived in this old cottage for 21 years. The house itself is close to 100 years old. Engineers say the building will have to come down.
There's fallen bricks and there's plaster render, which was the old cement render in these old homes, has all come down. There's a brick-fronted fireplace in the lounge room, which at any second could go. It's ripped right away from the wall and there's no ties through to it. There's foundations. Every floor you walk on is vibrating under your feet. We just can't live in it.
With the help of local townsfolk, the Parkers managed to save many of their possessions from the crumbling house. But like so many in their predicament, their loss is more than material.
Just a lifetime of you see your kids when they were born flash in front of your face and the growing up stages. And when it's gone, how do you remember it?
Do you have any insurance?
We have no insurance at all, nothing. And my husband's and my age to try and restart and build from here, I don't know where we'll go. I've got no idea. We've got our ground and that's it. And I've got my kids and my family. That's the main thing.
Like in Newcastle, the rescue effort in Holmesville swung into action almost immediately. And for that, Noel Parker will be eternally grateful.
There's only one thing I would like to say, is thanks to all the boys in Holmesville that come down to help us. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you, boys.
An international field including Americans Jack Hewitt, Danny Smith and Jeff Gordon challenged Australian champion Gary Rush and current series leader George Tatnell in the $330,000 championship. Racing was well underway when the track was hit by gale force winds, making high-speed driving nearly impossible and literally blowing several cars into the concrete wall. Brooke Tatnell took over his father's lead after he hit the wall, only to be involved in a collision with American Jack Hewitt minutes later.
Two more down through the infield.
Winfield marketing director Des Hancock also gave the crowd something to cheer about when he presented $50,000 for the Lord Mayor's earthquake appeal.
Carrington Chambers is the quake's latest casualty. The historic building in the heart of Newcastle has been caught in a war of words between authorities and heritage supporters. At 10:30 last night, it seemed the Chambers had a reprieve when Justice Steen in the Land and Environment Court issued a temporary stay on demolition.
My solicitor conveyed that to Alderman McNaughton at around 12 o'clock last night, as well as informing the duty police officers at the site at that stage. And also the demolisher was also informed that the injunction order had been placed.
But it appears the way in which the order was delivered held little sway with the authorities. Early today, the demolishers swung into action. Like the adjoining George Hotel, Carrington Chambers offered stubborn resistance to the hammering of the demolition ball. Members of the National Trust looked on helplessly as the Chambers weathered the onslaught. Their hopes that the injunction would allow a leading conservation engineer to add his opinion to the protests were dashed.
As to whether they needed to be demolished is a debatable question, one that I would like to satisfy my own mind by making an internal inspection, but as it appears now, it's probably a little late for that.
Mid-morning, the injunction order was finally recognised and the demolishers stopped work. But what was still standing offered little hope of repair. Dion Ackland, the man who initiated the injunction, conceded it was a hopeless task.
As you can see, it's got to the stage where following up with the injunction would prove quite fruitless for the building. So the only alternative left was to withdraw the injunction, as we have this afternoon.
The City Council insists that independent engineering advice proved beyond a doubt that Carrington Chambers had to come down. The National Trust think otherwise. Should Carrington Chambers have been demolished?
I believe not.
With business resuming, police warn the city will run differently to pre-earthquake days. Barricades will shield dangerous buildings, with the public required to stay clear of areas surrounded by orange mesh. Hunter Street, from Dairy Farmers Corner to Stewart Avenue, will remain closed due to damage at the Pink Elephant markets, with the top end of Union Street and Watt Street also blocked to traffic. Police ask that motorists use designated parking areas around the city so as to avoid major traffic congestion in the heart of the central business district.
We request that the parking areas at the International Sports Centre, at BHP and the grassed area along Hannell Street and Bar Beach car parks are fully utilised.
A shuttle bus service every 15 minutes will link the parking stations with the city. Authorities stress motorists shouldn't anticipate free movement around the central business district. There will be a 30-kilometre speed limit with extra police on hand to enforce the regulations.
The reason for the speed limit is to ensure that there are not unnecessary vibrations on buildings that are still being repaired, and also because of the number of large vehicles visiting the inner city area, to overcome that conflict there's a need for us all to travel slowly and take those vehicles and pedestrians into account.
The Coastal Patrol at Port Stephens said the rescue had a happy ending because the 7-metre cruiser would not have been a match for heavy storms experienced in local waters a couple of days ago. The Black Marlin's crew of 5 from Nelson Bay and Seaham had been fishing when their vessel broke down. They radioed for help at 7 o'clock last night and maintained radio contact with coastal rescue services throughout the ordeal. However, no one could establish their location. The Black Marlin drifted further from the coast, sparking a full coastal search. Newcastle's rescue helicopter was called out twice, but had to return after reaching its 20-mile offshore search limit. Finally, at 9:15 this morning, Wollongong's air ambulance discovered the vessel 53 nautical miles of Long Reef, south of Gosford. Broken Bay Water Police towed the vessel to safety. The 5 crew, including a teenage boy, are all reported to be in good spirits.
International recruits number 17 and 18 arrives yesterday, and already they have made a big impression. Greg Lazard and Tom Curry are the latest overseas ball players to join the Falcons for a stint in the National Basketball League. Both hail from Louisiana. Lazard is 25 years old, and if looks and attitude count, he will be a big hit in more ways than one. Lazard has been brilliant in the recent Mexico season, scoring up to 36 points a game, at the same time pulling in 22 rebounds. Able to bench press 425 pounds, there's not too many players who will push him around. Tom Curry was named in the top 5 players in the United States in high school, was drafted to Louisiana State University, but decided to transfer to Marshall University to play under his old coach. In his senior year, Curry made the All-Star 5 at centre for his conference, and he has also been playing in Mexico while nursing a knee strain. For coach Ken Cole, he may now have the toughness under the basket he's been looking for.
Well, we really went looking for 2 big players who could help us become a lot more physical than we've been able to be. We realised that we're the most inexperienced team in the league, and the only way to rectify that, I think, is to give our kids the mental protection that they need, and that's with 2 real big, strong people, and I think we've got them.
You can't make an assumption in 24 hours, but they look pretty good after only being here for a day.
Well, they look surprisingly good to me. I expected them to look quite rusty. They haven't had a chance to do a whole lot. They've been out right through Christmas and then the long flight down, and they've walked straight onto the court just after getting off a plane, and I think everybody's fairly impressed. I'm as impressed with their attitude as the way they look, although I must admit they look rather fearsome.
Since the earthquake, the Master Builders Association has been a clearinghouse for more than 10,000 building-related inquiries. 1.5 weeks after the quake struck, staff say the phones haven't stopped.
Good afternoon, Master Builders. There is up to a 4-week delay, but we'll endeavour to have somebody there as soon as possible.
Most of the major work's being taken care of by major commercial builders, but we're getting all the incidentals that haven't yet been attended to, and they're enormous.
Today, hundreds of builders and subcontractors met at the association's Broadmeadow office to discuss the industry's current position. Each filled out a status report to be used by the association to pair builders' resources with client needs.
We've got forms out to try and assess availability of work, who can do what particular area we've got to work in, and we'll try and get all that into the computer so that we can get some of this backlog gone.
Guest speakers answered queries on insurance, legal matters and engineering concerns. The association hopes this meeting, together with the central computerised register, will ensure a controlled flow of work. And with the region's resources fully stretched, the workforce will be supplemented by a national employment drive by the Commonwealth Employment Service.
The first rescue services knew of the accident was when a passing boat picked up 3 survivors in the water. By the time the police launch was on the scene, nothing could be seen of the 36-foot Ngluka except its roof and an oil slick. The cruiser, which operates out of Soldiers Point, was apparently returning from a trip to Moffat's Oyster Barn with 45 people on board when it went down about 1 kilometre off Snapper Island. 41 were rescued by other boats. However, 3 children and an adult were trapped inside the hull and drowned. The survivors were taken ashore at Soldiers Point, where a fleet of ambulances was waiting to ferry them to hospital. Most were uninjured, suffering only hypothermia and shock.
Boat was going along and over it went and sunk. Tragedy, absolute tragedy.
We could have had a rudder problem, we don't know. It was just quick. We went starboard port and then back filled up and we're all in.
On behalf of the Newcastle District Police, I want to pass on our sympathy to the loved ones, friends and relatives of those who lost their lives in the earthquake on the 28th of December. As the Commander of the Newcastle Police District, I would like to publicly thank the Newcastle and other district police who were involved in this operation. For without your enthusiastic support, our operation would not have been as speedy and successful. I'm very proud of each and every one of you. I would like to thank the Lord Mayor of Newcastle and the City Council employees, together with all the other services, government departments and service clubs, who all pulling together made this recovery operation an outstanding success. I make special mention of the media for your help in keeping everybody abreast of what was happening. And last but not least, I sincerely thank you, the Newcastle people, who have shown that community spirit is truly alive and well in this region, because by your assistance to us and to each other, Newcastle is well on its way to recovery. Congratulations and thanks to you all for a job well done.
Hoisted up on the marina at Soldiers Point, the Ngluka was the focus of much attention from police, the MSB, media and the public. On board, scientific detectives and MSB officers went over her with a fine-tooth comb, searching for a clue to why the cruiser sank off Snapper Island just after 6 p.m. on Monday. A police report prepared yesterday stated the Ngluka had suddenly broached and failed to correct itself and then sank by the stern. But today MSB officers varied from that. They believe a sudden push on the throttle could have led to an abrupt change in direction. In response, the boat may have dipped and then capsized. According to one of the investigating team, Jim West of Nelson Bay MSB, with 54 people aboard, the Ngluka had no chance of staying upright.
It was far too many people. I try to lecture people here. I heard a report on the wireless this morning to say that people need educating. You can educate people all you like, but to make them comply with those advice or regulations, whatever you like to call it, it's nearly impossible.
5 kids lost, Jim. You think, this is a lesson for everyone here, and it's one way to get it across, even though it's a pretty cruel way to live?
I think everything happens for a reason. I think this is a message, and I hope and I do believe that people will learn by this.
It's believed that 5 young children who failed to survive were in the downstairs forward section of the Ngluka when she ran into trouble. And with the boat going down so quickly, what had earlier been their playhouse cubbyhole suddenly became a death trap. Police have revealed the children were trapped in an air pocket against the roof of the compartment as the vessel sank. It's believed divers spoke with one of the youngsters who was clinging to a curtain rail. When the bodies were found, they were brought out through a small hatch at the bow. Scientific police will prepare a model of the Ngluka to assist the coronial inquiry. Meanwhile, many of the survivors were taken to Nelson Bay Police Station today to be interviewed. The Ngluka's owner and captain, Dennis Warner, also gave a statement behind closed doors. Several hours later, after an elaborate decoy plan, Mr. Warner left, hiding under the dashboard of his wagon.
Yeah, mate. You want the motor around the
Greg Lazard and Tom Curry have arrived in the Falcon's Nest after huge rats from talent scouts in the United States. Both hail from Louisiana and were former college stars. Lazard is one of the most aggressive characters to gain a Newcastle contract, and already his reputation for full-on training sessions is spreading, with many people turning up at the stadium to see him go through his paces. And he also cuts a mean figure in the gym. At Lee Jensen's Nautilus today, Lazard pushed his 6'9" frame of pure muscle to the limit, a task he actually enjoys.
The weights has a good bit to do with it because it makes you a physical person and it makes you feel great about yourself. So I enjoy lifting weights.
One thing he can't wait for is showing his skills on the court.
I'm just here to do my job. I like to just win, as everyone would want to do, and just play an important role to the team.
For Tom Curry, it was more of a leisurely build-up to the weights session, receiving a little treatment to an old knee injury that has been given the all-clear by Lee Jensen. Curry has often struggled in his quest for the big time, but is looking towards a new start down under.
This is a great opportunity. I get to play with my homeboy Greg Lazard, and I'm learning a lot, you know, about the way he plays and the way his views on life and everything.
And already Curry can sense a Falcons revival.
I think they're a real talented team and everything, you know, and me and Greg is just what they need. Yeah, bulk up the inside.
From the outside, damage to the Junction Public School is deceiving. It's only when you step inside that you realise how severe the destruction is. If the earthquake had have occurred in school hours and not in a holiday period, then the tragedy in Newcastle would have been far worse. Although more than $50 million will be spent on schools in the Hunter region, the Education Department is thankful no lives were lost.
There's certainly big problems.
Classes will be held in demountables until the fate of the main building is decided, but it appears both ends will be demolished and only the middle section will be saved.
You can see the prognosis for this part of the building is very bad because it's demolishing itself at the stage on this end, and the other end is in a very bad state. The section in the middle, which is the oldest section, is obviously one that if we can save it, we'd like to save it.
Although the junction is one of the worst affected, 65 schools out of 187 in the earthquake zone sustained some form of damage. As well as the junction, the minister was shown around Mayfield West Public, Merriweather and Newcastle High Schools and Tighes Hill Technical College. School resumes at the end of this month, and although the Education Department guarantees classes will not be disrupted, there will still be many areas out of bounds to students and staff.
And the area down here will be barricaded off.
This damage is relatively minor though compared to the repair work needed at Tighes Hill Technical College. 23 buildings make up the institute and every building is damaged. Principal Gordon Gilroy believes it will be at least 3 years before the college returns to normal.
It will take 2 or 3 years before it's all completely repaired.
In the short term, $22 million will be spent on repairs. Mr Gilroy is confident, though, that with state government help and assistance from local industries such as BHP, Tighes Hill will be able to function from day one of the school year.
With the help that the Minister's providing us and the help that we're getting from other departments, the office from private industry, that we'll have our classes up and running by the beginning of the year.
So are you confident all classes will be accommodated?
I am at the moment, and I might be being a bit optimistic, but yes.
The state government is to turn the vacant Mayfield Primary School into temporary classrooms for the college.
We'll be occupying some of the classes at other accommodation, hopefully at Mayfield, if that becomes available to us. And all of the classes that were in the small business centre, we would move there. The classes that were in the Edgeworth David building, we're hoping to move into demountable buildings.